welcome back to the Mob Mentality Show. My name is Austin Chadwick and Chris Lucian as co-host. And today we're very excited to be talking to Gabriel Robaina and Kieran Murphy on the exciting topic of pair programming and frequent pair rotation. So lots of exciting things there. But before we jump into that topic, we'll have both of you introduce yourself. So starting with you, Gabriel.
Okay. It's nice to be here. I'm Gabriel Robaina. Pronouns are he and him. I'm from Brazil. So I was born in Rio, but I live in Santa Catarina state. I actually have been programming as a hobby since I was 14. I used to do lots of mods for computer games. I started with GTA, which is a fun one. As of other hobbies, I'm also a singer, or I like to think that I am one. My girlfriend says that I am, so I trust her. I have been doing mob programming since I joined ThoughtWorks in 2022, which makes me a beginner in the topic, but very excited to learn about it, to share this knowledge with others, and trying to get as much experience as I can with it. I have been doing it a lot since I joined ThoughtWorks, so it's a fun topic to me. I am also pursuing a master's degree in applied computing right now, so it's like I work during the day, I work during the night as well, kind of thing.
Go ahead, Kieran.
All right. And my name's Kieran Murphy. My pronouns are he, him. I live in Chicago, Illinois, in the US. I've been a consultant with ThoughtWorks now for about 7 years. But I consider myself a longtime XP practitioner. So I feel pretty lucky that I got exposed to things like pairing and TDD really early in my career. And it's stuck with me, and I've been able to find places to practice and continue learning that throughout. I would say I've been working in software since about 2005. I've been a developer, a tech lead. Similar to Gabriel, I started out coding as a youngster. For me, it was a little different. TRS-80 computers, learning basic, more programming than software. Professionally, I've followed the path more of an application developer, solution architect. But now in recent years, I've found my career has shifted more into coaching and enablement and learning. So I find myself now have really been lucky to work on quite a number of projects now with clients of doing like boot camp training, just basically helping teams learn and develop what they're doing. I'm also, for the last 2 years, I've also been teaching undergraduate computer science at Loyola University, Chicago, which has brought me a lot of joy. And when I'm not working or teaching, I'd like to learn different things. So lately I've been on kind of a kick about learning about video games and game design. So that's about me.
Fantastic. Well, great intro. Thank you both. We're excited to have you on the show. And this would be really fun to dive into your all's pair programming topic. And we mob pretty much full time, and but what often happens with mobbing is someone goes on vacation or helps out another team, and hey, we're pairing. And so pairing is something that we do quite a bit as well. And it sounds like you all have a story to share on some sort of pairing and experimentation you ran. Do you want to jump into that? I'm excited to hear.
Sure. Pairing is something that we believe in. It's one of our ThoughtWorks sensible default practices. So it's something that our teams start out with and do. About a year ago, a ThoughtWorks leader came to us with some concerns about a couple of teams. And these teams were doing our practices. They were pairing, but they were just not really as predictable as maybe we would like folks to be. And it seemed like there was also some tension and stress on these teams. Getting to know the folks, we found there are a number of folks here who were new to pairing. So everyone believed in it, but it was kind of a new practice, and they didn't really have a lot of just team expertise in pairing and how to do it, how to make it effective. So we started looking into this, and some of the symptoms that we saw in these groups: pairing for long periods of time. Like a pair that pairs up and then they're pairing for a week or 2 weeks, or sometimes even a bit longer. Some of the things that we've seen even in teams that are not pairing, like knowledge silos, low participation in planning sessions, things that indicate people don't have a lot of context on everything that's going on in the system. So they kind of participate where they can and keep quiet otherwise.
Yeah.
And daily stand-up and retro, not so great. Go ahead, Gabriel.
Yeah, we started to realize that some of these symptoms that we saw in teams that practice pairing were common to teams that didn't do pairing at all. So teams that do solo coding as the main practice. So not having enough knowledge of the entire system, low participation in stand-up refinements, etc. Knowledge silos being created instead of it being assigned to a specific person, the knowledge silo was a pair because of not enough switching of pairs with not enough frequency. So based on this learning and seeing teams doing rotations once every week, 2 weeks, or even a month, we saw a situation of that. That's the point we decided to propose something different. Let's try to change this process in order for us to make pairing better. Let's do it more effectively, and let's actually reap the benefits of having pairing as a practice. That's what we believe in.
Nice. Okay, great. And how many teams was this? Was this like observed, by a coach for a couple teams, or was this bigger? Was it, you rattled off some great observations there, but I'm a little curious how it was noticed. Yeah.
We worked with 3 different teams.
Okay.
Over the course of several months, and Gabriel was actually on one of these teams when we first started.
Yeah.
What was noticed was, like I said, just leadership feeling like there were other problems. Something that we didn't mention that was also a symptom there was team members not really bonding with each other, and that seemed to be causing some anxiety as well. It's hard to pair with people who you don't know very well or who might have different working styles. And how do you get over that? How do you get to a place where you can pair?
And a team is more than one pair, or is a team a pair, or how do you break that up?
These teams were
three pairs on average. 6 people, 3 pairs on average.
3 pairs each. Okay, so 3 pairs each, 3 different teams.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few of the pairs just seemed to be a little less predictable. And of that, was there any other indication about like how work was pulled in or anything along those lines, or was it just specifically these combinations of people? And then what was your finding afterwards?
Yeah, let me give you a specific example of that. This team initially used to do estimation based on whether a story card would fit into 5 days of development or not. So because people didn't have enough context of the entire system, the team would go into a meeting and like the leadership would ask, hey, does this fit in 5 days of development? And the team would go like, I think so, yeah. I'm not really sure because I don't have much experience on that region of code, but I would say yeah. So this was one of the reasons that made the team unpredictable, because we were unsure if the predictions were wrong, the estimations were wrong, maybe the productivity was low. So we decided to tackle this problem from a knowledge sharing standpoint, making everyone be able to opinionate and do estimations on everything. And we can, like, at the end of the talk, go back to this specific situation and see how it changed after we addressed the per rotation frequency thing.
Okay. And so I assume that was it like a forced rotation? Was it like how did the team start rotating? What was the story there?
I'll take that one. We proposed an experiment with these groups. And, you can't really do anything like this without buy-in from everyone involved. So what we proposed was, let's fix a time box of a week or 2, and let's go completely the opposite direction. Let's pair swap every single day. So every day we're going to pair swap. And to support us in that, we're going to have a little session every morning. We called it a retrospective, but it was just a, 20 minutes, at most 30-minute session of just these 3 questions. what's making pairing hard, what's making pairing easy, what are some things that we can try today to try to make it easier than it was yesterday. So that was really the routine that we proposed. With each of these teams, we kicked this off with one session where we started off with one first question, asking the groups just to brainstorm on a mural. First question, what makes pairing valuable? And I thought that was really important to start with because, we believe in these things. And I think I've seen in my career where pairing has gone from being less controversial to more mainstream, even if folks don't actually practice it as much as I would like them to. At least I don't feel like an outsider talking about it anymore like I used to.
Yeah.
But it was good to get people to just put on paper or in mural, what is it? What's the value proposition here? And in that, we got a lot of the things that we'd expect: knowledge sharing, learning different parts of the code base, learning different parts of the tech stack, my own personal learning about different things so I don't get siloed into things. And then in that opening session, we'd ask the other questions too. Okay, well, now that we talked about what makes it valuable, what makes it hard? And there, I think, again, we heard a lot of the things that we would probably all anticipate. We can expand on those. Why don't you share on that a little bit, Gabriel?
Yeah, sure. So what makes pairing hard? So not having enough time to pairing, too many meetings throughout the day. Context switching is too expensive. We don't like switching pairs. So we started hearing from the teams all the fears that they had regarding pairing. And one of our goals throughout this experiment was getting each of these problems and trying to give some ideas or try to build some ideas with the teams on how could we make it better so that those difficulties are not difficulties anymore. So we proposed the Pomodoro method as a way to improve time management, having pauses throughout the day. That's one of the things. One important aspect of this is that these teams are all remote, working from home. So we also suggested to the teams from start, hey, maybe we can make pairing better if we use a collaboration tool like a Code with Me from IntelliJ. That's what the teams used at the time. So based on this, we started off trying to actually change pairs every day, which is the extreme opposite of what they did before.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, I think at least I can't speak universally for all people pairing and mobbing, but some sort of Pomodoro or break thing has worked wonders as far as helping the engagement and enjoyment and effectiveness of it. So I definitely second that one. So I suspect it almost felt like to me, you didn't say it, but I wonder what was the thinking behind, hey, maybe we're not switching enough, let's switch every day. Is it kind of more like it hurts, so let's do it more kind of thing? Or what was kind of the thinking there?
I would say, yeah, that was because I've been a long time believer in that. Like we used to say, if something's hard to do it more often until it becomes easy. But something else in my background that informed this was I was on a team some years before I worked at ThoughtWorks where it was an interesting company. We had to do pairing all the time. We had to do pairing and test-driven development all the time. And in that team, I really got to a point where I realized that pair swapping more often is more valuable. And in that group that I just mentioned, we even set out at some point to try to pair swap twice a day. So pair in the morning, pair again after lunch. The thing that made it break down was that everybody would have to be on exactly the same schedule. Yeah. Now, we were all in the same office at that time, so we might have been able to make that work, but nobody really wanted to commit to that level of lockstep coordination.
Yeah, and it also, we also had the hypothesis or the belief that even though it might seem costly at first to switch pairs every day, and it's painful to switch pairs every day, it gets much better over time. Mm-hmm. So that's something else that we told the teams, hey, at first it will be bad, but at the end, let's talk about it again and see how painful it really is. And at the end of the experiment, to close the experiment, there's this final question. Like, what is the pair rotation frequency that you as a team want to maintain going forward outside of the experiment? So we propose the frequency, and then we see like the result. Do the team realize that it was beneficial to the team? So more at the end about that.
Good.
Go ahead, Chris, if you got something. I had a follow-up question.
No, go ahead. I saw that you looked like you wanted to say something, so go for it.
There's been many examples and case stories I've heard of kind of the lots of switching thing. And so in this example, were people switching pairs within the same team? Because I think you mentioned before it was 3 pairs to a team. Because I've also heard of other examples where it's like, you go from working from team A of, let's say, 6 people to team B, another set of 6 people, to team C, all within a couple of weeks, and they're all completely different code bases and domains and that kind of thing. So by your nodding, it seemed like the layout was within one team, one code base kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Understood.
Yeah.
That clarifies a lot.
Working on 3 separate projects.
Okay. Understood.
Cool. Coming back to what makes pairing hard aspect a little bit, one of the biggest ones that we got was the hey, pair switching makes us slower. Like, switching pairs makes us slower. And then this was a big one because it may seem like that, like at first, and like being slow is not a thing that the team wants. So getting the buy-in on the experiment while having the team think that it's making them slower was a hard one. So there was some like a teaching or coaching aspect of it and saying, hey, we believe in pairing, and pairing is all about long-term like benefits of doing that. And it gets better over time, and you get faster, and it's better than doing solo coding because of the knowledge sharing and everything. So at the end, we could like figure out that and make the teams also see that it didn't make them slower at all. It's not a real thing.
I think that was some of the value from the frequent swapping. And another challenge that was raised was, not knowing each other very well. So especially in this world where we're all distributed, teams don't have any just coffee time or passing in the office anymore. If you only pair swap every few weeks, it's going to take you 6 months before you've paired with everybody on the team. With these groups, we found even, when we'll get later to where they wound up on what cadence they wound up with, even though they didn't stick with daily pairing going on into the future, in that week or two, everybody got to pair with everybody. So a lot of progress was made on just getting to know each other. And with getting to know each other is also figuring out other people's work styles and work patterns and routines and how you can all work together happily.
So as far as the knowledge sharing and siloing goes, were there any like big aha moments that the team had because they started swapping and seeing stuff, or did it take a while for it to come through, that sort of thing?
I would share one that to me was very significant. The second team that we worked with, prior to this experiment, their pairing, they were trying to maintain a lot of different constraints, or trying to pair within constraints that they felt they needed to maintain. So some people are front-end developers, some people are back-end developers, some people are more senior, some people are earlier in their journey. So, trying to never pair 2 junior people or only put the back-end people on the back-end work. So these kind of things that were making it harder to pair swap, or making it harder for everyone to swap with everybody. After doing a week of this swapping every day, you can't maintain all those constraints. So there will be a day where 2 junior people are paired with each other. And the groups figured out, well, actually, that was a great learning opportunity that no one had realized before. And the thing that was really significant to me was hearing on that team, someone who had come in and said, I have always been a front-end developer. And now after just a few days of this, I feel confident anchoring a back-end card. So people were learning, the things that seemed like a constraint that you would want to maintain out of sense of safety or because you think, for all the right reasons. I felt after this experiment, I felt convinced that actually just breaking it down and getting everybody into everything was probably a better way to go.
Yeah, and there might be a situation in which two juniors pairing say, hey, we are not making much progress. This is frustrating. Mm-hmm. But in reality, it doesn't matter because tomorrow it's a different pair.
Yeah.
Right.
So you take the learning opportunity, you do the best that you can, and tomorrow it's another different scenario. You don't it's not really painful if it's only for one day.
Yeah.
And those junior level developers get a realistic understanding of the things that they don't know, rather than having somebody they can always just go to all the time. So
right.
Yeah,
there's a benefit to
That's
that.
true.
The one aha moment that I can bring, we had a production issue, a bad one, and we had to do a hot fix. And then leadership on the team started to think, who should we assign this to? What is the developer, the more appropriate one to investigate? And leadership realized anyone, doesn't matter who we assign it to. We're taking the card with the last priority and can stop it to tackle the production bug. And then they did it, and it worked well. It was successful. It shows how knowledge flows through the team equally over time, which is a really good benefit of pairing. And from that, we got a very powerful quote that me and Kieran, we like it very much, and we memorized it, which is quote unquote, knowledge silos are impossible to maintain, which is a strong one. And we heard it from one of the team members that we did the experiment with. So that's the aha moment there.
Yeah, so you couldn't make one if you tried to.
Exactly.
If someone got grew horns and wanted to try to make one, it was impossible. Nice.
In the logistics of the rotation, was a card completed before people rotated, or was a card active and one person rotated off? Was there any sort of context maintenance, or was it just both people were new each day on the same card?
Yeah, our plan and what we strove for in each case was to have someone be an anchor on a card for only one extra day.
Okay.
So to your first question, yes, the cards did go on more than a day or two. But in our pair swapping every morning, we would organize. So, if you were the anchor on the card today, you would rotate off of it the next day. I think most cards would be wrapped up before you would have to come back around and be on it again. But some cards did go a bit longer.
One thing that I've seen experiments like this run in many different contexts. We had 5 people that were doing a 3-person mob in a pair and rotating back through each one, and others, and so often context comes up as a struggle point, and so but what I see a lot too, a big complaint is I started something but I never got to finish it. Or I finished something, but I don't know anything about what we started with it. Did you have any of that? Was there any conversation about that?
One of the retros we did, there was what makes pairing hard card that mentioned context, context maintenance, like you said. One of the solutions that the team suggested, and it worked really well, is what we called at the time the implementation plan, which is actually a task list for the card being played. Mm-hmm. So when teams maintained that, we made sure that we had visibility on the steps needed to finish, and of every open item that teams discovered, open questions, refactoring opportunities, it was all there to support the rotations. Another solution that the teams found was at the end of the day, write a brief paragraph on the card with what was done, any information that they found useful to share. So those two tools in conjunction made it work. So we never heard about struggles with context maintenance after we did the solutions. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And I guess, did you guys experiment into, like, how did you discover the kind of anchor role and anchor card? And to set the stage a little bit, I think I've seen it happen before where there isn't something like that and people feel really lost, right? Like, there isn't someone or something to anchor them. And so the pair mob will flail, right? So how did you land with kind of this anchor role and anchor card pattern? Like what got you there?
Yeah, in these teams, the anchor role already existed when we joined. So
Okay.
even infrequent pair rotations, the anchor, it was still a thing. There was an anchor that stayed for 2 weeks and the other one would rotate every week. But yeah, other than that, Kieran, do you have more like broader context than that on the anchor?
No, I think it is just as you said. And I think something that the teams had seen before doing this was that anchor role kind of reinforced the knowledge silos too. So often that person who owns all of the cards in this part of the code base would tend to be the anchor on all the cards in that part of the code base too.
Yeah, the team that I'm in right now, we used to do something called the feature champion, which is like the go-to person for a specific feature.
Yeah.
It worked for us for a little while, but in turn, it sounds like a knowledge silo, like Kieran said. So it's a feature knowledge silo to this champion figure. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference, right? Because I feel like from what I've experienced and seen, you need it's like minimum viable anchor, right? You don't want knowledge silo, right? But you need something. That's kind of part of the benefit of pairing and mobbing, right? Is if there is no anchor, you're kind of losing part of the benefit of someone having the context there, so it doesn't have to be in a 100-page document, or it doesn't have to be, you know what I mean? There's the stuff flying around in the conversation, right? That we love in Agile. But if there's no anchor for that, for it to transition enough to get to the next pair mob, you kind of lose it, right? But you don't want that to be a long-term role, right? Because then you don't get the goal you got earlier where you're saying, who can fix this? Anyone can fix this, right? You know, so because if you had a champion in the other end of the spectrum, the answer would always be the champion will fix this, right? You know, so
yeah, I like that minimum viable anchor.
Yeah,
I think it works.
I thought that the way we saw folks explore and discover ways to manage this challenge, because context sharing, I think that was one of the bigger fears that we heard when we first kicked this off. Well, you know, one of the bigger perceived barriers to frequently pair switching was, oh, we're going to spend all of our time just context switching and it'll take me forever to bring someone up to speed on this. What I enjoyed seeing was how the teams just figured out other ways in their work to manage it. So like the stuff that Gabriel mentioned, in some ways, the card, wherever you Jira or Trello, wherever you represent it, that can carry a lot of context. I agree with you, Austin, the 100-page document, that was the thing that nobody ever reads. But the practice of just, you know, how about at the end of the day, we just write a little comment on the card that says, Kieran and Gabriel paired on this. This is what we did. These are the questions we had. This is where we ended. This is what we think we're going to do next. That's something that I've found teams hit on when we're distributed. You know, when the end of my day is the beginning of my teammates' days, we'll learn to put a note in the chat to pass context that way. And here we found teams where they were even within one time zone of each other, but they found the same practice helpful just for conveying something to the next person, to the next pair that picked it up.
Cool. One other logistical note, I heard Chris mention logistics. So was the swapping kind of open-ended or self-organized, or was there like a chart on the wall or a virtual wall somewhere? Was it like scheduled out? Like how does that How do I know where I'm going each day if I'm
It
swapping?
was facilitated but not prescribed. So we would meet with the teams every morning for at most about 30 minutes. And that would be the short retro that I described of, what was hard yesterday, what was easy yesterday, what should we do? And then we would pair swap. And we would just use a typical pairing matrix and just setting a goal to try to get everybody to pair with everybody else within the time that we had. But this is where it always breaks down a bit because you only have so many people and you have so much work in progress. And sometimes the other constraint of wanting each anchor to swap off every day, things like that, we did the best we could within those constraints. But to your question, no, I don't think people ever came in knowing who they were going to pair with.
Okay.
That day or next week or anything like that. They just knew it was going to be somebody different.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
worked. Oh, go ahead, Gabriel. You first. Yeah.
On the third team, I was the tech lead for that team, and I brought the experiment, and we took the knowledge sharing or like switching to another level. So the pair swapping ceremony and also the retrospective would be facilitated by a different person every day. So that there was this other, like, this is something that worked really well. Not even the ceremonies of the experiment would be stuck to a single person, but instead everyone would be doing it in a self-organized manner as well. So there was not really like no one telling people to do anything. They were figuring it out.
Cool. Yeah, it reminds me of right now I'm kind of more on a mob that doesn't have a rotation schedule, but ad hoc. We're bringing people in and out of the mob all the time, depending on what we're working on. But a couple of years ago, I was on a team that was 6 people, and it was 2 mobs, or it could turn into 3 pairs or whatever. But generally, it landed in 2 mobs. But at the beginning of the week, we would roll dice, or we called it like the Wheel of Doom. I don't know why we called it Doom, just to make it sound dramatic, but it would randomize the teams. But then there was always, it reminded me of what you said, like facilitated, not prescripted kind of thing, where if the team landed in a way where everyone was like, ooh, that means there's no anchor for that work, or, we didn't use the word anchor, but we basically said context or something like that. There'd be some twiddling with the fate of the dice before we started the week. And so it kind of sounds similar, where there's some structure to it, but not too much structure, but just enough, right? Yeah. Some choice in there. Yeah. Cool.
Did this have any effect on the size of the cards? Like, so was there any like story decomposition, and was it affected by this practice or not? Or
Yeah, so for sure it was like going back to the previous example about the 5-day cards. After the experiment ended, and the team started learning more about the whole system or the whole domain, they started to change how estimation was done. So instead of trying to fit a card to 5 days, they started doing actually like planning poker, trying to write a card with a specific business goal as a proper user story, and trying to figure out an estimation for that. And that in turn changed how the entire team and also product and management saw how we build cards, how we think about the cards, how we make sure they achieve a goal and have enough information inside. Refinements got better. So I would say that's the most immediate impact of doing that.
Very cool.
I reviewed some of the mural boards from these before we came in here, and there was one, we used color-coded stickies for each day so we could see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday what people were calling out. One of these groups, there was one day where there were 3 cards that related to not enough information written in the card. Incomplete information in the story card when we get it. And I remember people in that group complaining that they paired up and they spent the whole day basically doing refinement on a card rather than actually implementing anything.
Interesting.
But I thought that was significant because it did, to me, it was another example where I think folks were starting to feel some benefit from working this way. And rather than saying, oh, we can't work this way because the cards don't support it, they started looking upstream and saying, well, what can we change about the cards so that they will support this way of working that we're finding value in?
I see. Yeah, maybe if you don't mind me drilling a little more, can you tell me more about that mural board? Something I've seen before. We've had it was two different mobs working on the same code base, or at least same product, and there's different repos and parts of the architecture, so to speak. But we had a giant draw.io diagram of kind of like the system and like where each mob was and kind of a high level of what tasks were going on in that part of the system. That was pretty beneficial for not only us, but also it turned out to be beneficial too for stakeholders, because kind of like, here's like the Disneyland map of what's going on right now with this team and this product. Yeah, and I'm wondering if there's any similarities or differences with this mural board you mentioned. Do you mind sharing more about that?
I think the mural that I'm mentioning is strictly for the morning retros that I mentioned. Okay. So not keeping track of what people are working on, but just those three columns. What's making it easy? What's making it hard? What should we try today?
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And we would see also that like each column of the mural board is an answer to the question. Like cards there are answers. And we would see that over time, the column of what makes pairing hard had like plenty of cards inside. And over the course of the experiment, it would like go down, 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 down. And the idea is also, like this pattern of things getting easier and easier. What makes it easier? Increasing number of cards. So it was very, very nice to see like not only getting to know about how it worked by perception, talking to people, but also very objectively drawn on the board, like how it was getting easier over time.
You mentioned earlier in the beginning that a little bit of this was that you didn't really have the water cooler conversations happening, and there's like interpersonal stuff. So like what happened there? Was there any like review of, just people getting to know each other through this process or anything along those lines? Was there any result from that?
I think that's a good question. I think if I did more of this, I'd probably be more intentional on just that point of getting to know each other a bit. Something that I do remember came out in one of these teams, there had been a lot of anxiety raised about folks not, having a hard time working with somebody that they don't know very well. One of the things to try that team hit on was, let's have some team building things. In the years since the pandemic started, we've found ways that we can get together and play a game online. We can do things besides get together and work, and that can help folks get to know each other. I also found teams just by pairing more often, it was, within the week or so, by pair swapping more often within the week or so, like I said earlier, people had some exposure pairing with each other. So they got to know, oh, this person has these routines in the morning that take some of their time, so we're not going to pair then, or this person has something else in the afternoon that takes their time.
Yeah. Something else that happened, and this was suggested by us in the experiment, was let's try a round of feedback by the end of the day between the pair. So what worked in the day, in the pairing that we just did? What didn't work? Like let's talk about this experience together. And internally, it also helped with feedback culture in the team, because we don't get as many opportunities to practice like giving and receiving feedback. So we also use this pair switching experiment as an opportunity to exercise feedback and team members. Yeah.
Nice.
One remote team building that we did was we shipped scented markers to everyone, and then we all smelled the same thing at the same time, because you don't smell the same smells. Like you don't smell the person cooking the fish remote, right? Or you don't smell the popcorn and everybody's like groaning because they want popcorn too. And so I really enjoyed sniffing markers together. That was pretty good.
Yeah, Chris is probably going to have to close down pretty soon, but I want to ask switch pretty quick to a different topic, just because I'm really curious to at least hear a soundbite on it. It sounds like at least one of you had a situation where you did mob programming in a computer science classroom setting. So if you can give a little like 60-second teaser on that, that'd be super cool to hear before Chris has to start closing this down.
That's me. I mentioned that I've been teaching computer science classes. So I teach a 100 level and 200 level computer science class. And it's a school of continuing and professional studies at Loyola University of Chicago. So in each session, I'll have about 15 students. There will be a few traditional undergrads, but mostly it's beginning graduate students or what I call career changers, folks who finished something and now they're coming back and learning computer science. And being the mob programming aficionado that I am, when I first started this, I knew there needed to be coding, so I would do some coding in class. And I remembered a professor I had who would do live coding, and that was really impactful for me. But after a couple of sessions, I realized that the students weren't getting anything out of watching me code. And I wasn't getting anything out of performing code for them. So I thought, I'm going to turn this around and have them code. And what I found was it's really been a lot of fun and really fascinating for me. And I get a lot of good feedback from the students on it, because for those few hours of the week, they get put into this environment where everybody has to code all the things that we love about mob programming. You know, it moves quickly. If you don't know something, it's okay, because you're only going to be on it for 5 minutes or so. You're not under all that pressure. And for me as the instructor, it let me actually step back, and all I really have to do is officiate this mob, ask some questions, call out points that are valuable. But I feel like it's been a really impactful application of mob programming.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, with that, I think it might be a good time to close it out. So, for each of you, is there anything that you would like to plug or share before we close out the episode?
I think I can start. So we actually wrote an article about this whole experience with frequent pair rotations. It's on LinkedIn. I hope I can give you the link, and you
put
can
it in the show notes. Yep.
Yeah. So please reach out if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to talk about this topic to anyone interested in knowing more. And thanks for the opportunity of being here talking about this.
All right.
I'll just say +1 to Gabriel.
All right. Great. Well, to our listeners, if you know someone that maybe is struggling with silo pairs, or maybe needs a new way to approach how they're organizing their pairs and could use an experiment, share this episode with them. And please be sure to like and subscribe and ring the notification bell and all of those things. And to our guests, thank you for joining us. And to our audience, we will see you all next time. Have a good one.
Thank you.